Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Miss Julia's English Club. I'm Hannah, your host, and okay, I have to be completely honest with you. This week has been one of the most dramatic news weeks I can remember in a very long time. My phone has not stopped buzzing.
Hey everyone, I'm James. And Hannah, seriously, I woke up on Tuesday and just sat in bed reading the news for like 40 minutes with my jaw on the floor. Because this story, what happened between the US and Iran this week, is genuinely one of the most significant geopolitical events in years.
Years, and we are going to talk about it today, clearly, fairly, and in natural English, so that our listeners around the world can understand what happened, why it matters, and most importantly, come away with powerful vocabulary to talk about it themselves.
Because this is exactly the kind of story that comes up in IELTS speaking tests, in C1 and C2 conversations, in job interviews, in university seminars. Being able to discuss world events clearly in English is a genuinely valuable skill.
So valuable. Okay, let's set the scene. James, can you give us a quick background? Because some of our listeners may not be fully up to speed on the US-Iran situation.
Of course. So, tensions between the United States and Iran have existed for decades, going back to the Islamic Revolution of 1979, when Iran's government was overthrown and replaced by an anti-American Islamic republic. Since then, the two countries have had no formal diplomatic relations. They've been adversaries, meaning opponents, rivals, enemies in a political sense, ever since.
And in recent years, those tensions escalated dramatically. Iran's nuclear program, its development of nuclear technology, which many Western countries feared could lead to nuclear weapons, has been a huge flashpoint. A flashpoint meaning a situation that suddenly explodes into conflict.
And this year, 2026, things reached a boiling point. Military confrontations in the Middle East involving Iran, Israel, Hezbollah, and Lebanon. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping lanes in the entire world, was effectively blocked, and that sent global oil prices through the roof.
Through the roof, meaning rising extremely fast and dramatically. Because the Strait of Hormuz, let's make sure everyone understands this, is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, and roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. 20%! So when it gets blocked or threatened, the entire global economy feels it almost immediately.
Almost immediately. Fuel prices go up, shipping costs go up. Everything transported by ship gets more expensive, which is basically everything.
Basically everything. Okay, so this week, President Trump issued what can only be described as an ultimatum. An ultimatum, this is such an important word. An ultimatum is a final demand. You do this or else. There is no more negotiation. It's a deadline with a threat attached.
And Trump's ultimatum was extraordinarily dramatic. He demanded that Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz, allow shipping to pass freely again, or face, and I'm paraphrasing here, catastrophic military strikes. He reportedly said something to the effect of, a whole civilization could be destroyed if Iran didn't comply.
Which, whatever your political views, is the kind of language that makes the whole world stop and hold its breath. Hold its breath, meaning to wait in anxious suspense, not knowing what will happen next.
Exactly. And then, just hours before Trump's deadline, a 2-week ceasefire was announced. The US and Iran agreed to a temporary pause in hostilities. Hostilities meaning acts of warfare or aggression between opposing sides.
And the reaction around the world was complicated. Some people felt enormous relief, like, okay, we stepped back from the brink. The brink meaning the very edge of something catastrophic, like a cliff edge. We stepped back from the brink of war.
Others were deeply skeptical because a 2-week ceasefire is very fragile. Fragile, easily broken, delicate, not stable. And even as the ceasefire was announced, Israel continued strikes in Lebanon. Iran was still launching retaliatory strikes in the region.
Retaliatory, meaning done in response to an attack. Retaliation is when you hit back after being hit. Iran launched retaliatory strikes. So the ceasefire was announced, but violence continued almost immediately, which raises the question, is this a real ceasefire or just a pause to catch breath before things get worse?
That is the question, and honestly, nobody knows. And I think that uncertainty is itself an important thing to talk about in English, because a lot of language learners want clear answers, but real-world English, especially in news and politics, is full of uncertainty, nuance, hedging.
Hedging, ooh, great concept. Hedging in language means using words that signal caution or uncertainty. Instead of saying this will happen, you say this may happen, or analysts suggest that, or it remains to be seen whether. These hedging phrases are incredibly important for C1 and C2 level English.
Incredibly important. In academic writing, in professional communication, in any sophisticated English, you need to hedge. Claiming certainty where there is none sounds naive. Showing awareness of uncertainty sounds intelligent and measured.
Measured, meaning calm, careful, and well-considered. A measured response, a measured assessment. It means you haven't overreacted or overstated things.
And I think one more thing worth discussing, because it keeps coming up in this story, is the role of oil and energy in global politics, because a lot of what's happening here is fundamentally about energy.
Yes, the world still runs on oil. Despite all the progress in renewable energy, solar, wind, electric vehicles, oil and gas remain absolutely central to the global economy, and the Middle East sits on top of a huge proportion of the world's oil reserves.
Reserves, the known stored supply of something. Oil reserves means the oil that exists underground and has been identified. Countries with large oil reserves have enormous geopolitical power, because whoever controls the energy controls a lot.
A lot. And that's why a conflict in this region, even a localized one, has ripple effects. We used that phrase in a previous episode, that reach every country on Earth. Your fuel costs in Europe, in Asia, in South America, all affected by what happens in the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is why this week's ceasefire, as fragile as it is, actually caused oil prices to drop sharply. Markets reacted immediately to the reduction in tension.
Markets, meaning financial markets, stock markets, commodity markets, they are constantly reacting to news, to uncertainty, to risk. A ceasefire means less risk, so oil prices fall. A breakdown in the ceasefire would send them surging again.
Surging, rising rapidly and powerfully, like a wave. Prices surged, demand surged, a really useful and very natural word.
Okay, and I want to end on something that I think gets lost in all the drama and the geopolitics. Real people are caught in the middle of all this. Civilians in Lebanon who have been living through strikes and counterstrikes, families in Iran, communities across the Middle East who just want to live their lives.
Yeah. Civilians, non-military people, ordinary citizens. When we talk about military conflict, it's easy to talk about governments and strategies and weapons systems. But the human cost, the civilian cost, is always the most important thing.
Always. And that empathy, that ability to think about the human beings behind the headlines, is also an important part of being articulate in English. The best communicators don't just know the facts, they understand the human dimension.
Beautifully said. Okay, vocabulary roundup. We have an exceptional list today.
Adversaries, political or military opponents, countries or groups that are rivals or enemies in a political sense.
Flashpoint, a situation, place, or time at which anger or violence suddenly flares up.
Ultimatum, a final demand with a threat attached if it is not met.
Hostilities, acts of warfare or aggression between opposing sides.
Fragile, easily broken, unstable, delicate, a fragile ceasefire.
Retaliatory, done in response to an attack, striking back.
Hedging, using language that signals caution and uncertainty rather than stating things as definite facts.
Measured, calm, careful, well-considered, not extreme or overreactive.
Reserves, stored or known supply of a resource like oil.
Surging, rising rapidly and powerfully.
What a set! Genuinely, these words will come up in IELTS, in Cambridge exams, in professional English, in real conversations about the world. Know them, use them, own them.
Today's comment challenge. Here it is. Do you think the US-Iran ceasefire will hold? And do you think the world is becoming more or less stable? Give your opinion and back it up.
B1 and B2, 5 to 7 sentences. Try using Adversaries, Fragile, or Flashpoint.
C1 and C2, construct a full analytical response. Use phrases like "it remains to be seen whether," "analysts suggest that," "the geopolitical implications of this development are significant because." Show us that sophisticated hedging language.
We are going to love reading these. Okay, if this episode helped you understand the world a little bit better and improved your English at the same time, please share it. That's the whole point of Miss Julia's English Club.
Subscribe right here on YouTube. We cover the biggest stories in the world every single day, always through the lens of real natural English.
Like the video, smash that notification bell, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one.
For me, James.
And me, Hannah, thank you for being here.